Hi there, and welcome to my list of S-tier strategy role-playing games. For me, S-tier means that these games are must-plays for nearly everyone, and I would argue if you are not a fan of or have not played any SRPG before, these are great ones to get started with. Going in order of their release, we start with the best SRPG on the PlayStation 1, Vandal Hearts. Being a retro title, it does have a few archaic game mechanics, but even with it being an older game, it still does so much more than a lot of its contemporaries. In Vandal Hearts, you will amass a small army totaling 12 characters, all of which will be taken into each battle. No benching characters, no generic units, all named characters that contribute to the story. One of the best parts about Vandal Hearts is you can promote your characters to a new rank. Ever since Final Fantasy I on the NES and Shining Force on the Genesis, I have always loved evolving my characters, seeing that new sprite work and powering up their stats. In Vandal Hearts, you take your characters down a split job path, each with their own pros and cons. And these aren't just palette swaps either, characters will take on a new look with each promotion. Another great aspect in Vandal Hearts that is so rarely seen is that each combat experience is wholly unique and recontextualizes how combat in the game works. Each battle is a different experience with unique goals and objectives. No two battles are alike, and again, this is something that is sorely missed and not seen in most SRPGs. And you can't talk about Vandal Hearts without talking about the gore and wonderful sound design that comes with it. Each kill is met with a fountain of blood, and most attack animations and sound bites lend them weight. It makes the whole experience feel visceral and honestly never gets old. Jumping forward in time quite a bit, next up on the list is Valkyria Chronicles. This is currently a 4-part series. The first game came out on the PS3, however it has been ported over to Steam and PS4 and 5. Parts 2 and 3 are on the PSP, and the fourth and final entry in the series is on Steam, PS4, and 5. These games are pretty unique, and I am shocked that there have not been too many attempts to replicate its gameplay mechanics. I do have a bit of a love-hate relationship with these games because while there are a lot of things I do love, there are some decisions that are just baffling. Regardless, that should speak to the game's strengths, because even with its shortcomings, the franchise as a whole is still in my S tier. Valkyria Chronicles is a turn-based third-person shooter. Each character has a specific role, such as scout or sniper. After selecting a character, you run around the battlefield looking for a base to capture. While moving on the field, you could be fired at by enemies. However, when you are ready to fire at your foe, the mode changes and you can take all the time in the world to aim. Accuracy is based on a percentage, meaning even if you line up your shot perfectly, you can still miss. This is where some of the strategy comes into play. If you overextend a unit into enemy territory and miss your shot, they are now left stranded without backup. This allows for emergent gameplay. You, the player, have gone from being proactive to reactive. Your best laid plan has failed, and now you have to scramble to rectify the situation. One other aspect I love in SRPGs is when they force you to split your team up, essentially giving you 2 smaller battles to keep track of. Valkyria Chronicles often splits your team, either having them go in other directions, or one half of the team will support the other half from the sidelines. One of my favorite aspects of Valkyria Chronicles, though, is how it handles character progression. Gone are those awful days of earning experience for every action you take. Instead, your whole team earns experience, which is funneled into a pool, a la Demon or Dark Souls. You can then use that pool to level up specific roles, and so any character that performs that role will level up. This eliminates grind and allows you to level the roles you most often use. Next up on the list is one that I did not expect. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle for the Nintendo Switch. There is a sequel, but personally I feel only Kingdom Battle is in the S tier. If you have not played this because you thought it may be baby's first SRPG, I promise you it is not. This is one of the best ones out there. Kingdom Battle is just fun. It has a heavy focus on movement and positioning, with a ton of different character types and a bunch of abilities to use. What surprises me the most though is the amount of enemy variety and just how well all of the enemies synergize with one another. Units that pose a decent challenge on their own take on a whole new strategy when combined with other types of units. A lot of maps will also have enemies spring up mid-battle, once again forcing you now to react in the moment. Then there are the bosses. The bosses are some of the best battles I have had in any SRPG ever, challenging and forcing you to deploy multiple strategies to take them down. All characters earn experience at the end of each battle. You can then use that experience to obtain new abilities. The skill trees are actually quite large and can cater to multiple playstyles. If you want, you can make Mario a jump and shoot man or a booper, booping enemies with his hammer. If you have been avoiding this one because you thought it was too easy, I encourage you to give it a try. While it does take a few battles for the game's difficulty to reveal itself, it does happen. It does eventually become challenging and require you to utilize a lot of strategy. Make it to the first mid-boss and you will see a jump in difficulty. And the last one on this list is probably the greatest SRPG I've ever played. 2022's Midnight Suns, out on Steam and PlayStation. I cannot recommend this amazing game enough. I have put in hundreds of hours and cannot put it down. Sadly, there is little chance Firaxis will follow up with a sequel, but honestly, I look forward to just about anything they put out. Midnight Suns remove movement limitations in combat, allowing you to freely move around the entire field, placing your units wherever you want. No more moving a few squares at a time. If you want to boop an enemy across the map, no problem. Combat uses a card-based system. Basically, each unit can equip a set number of cards. Then, in battle, those cards will be drawn randomly. The best part is, each unit plays out differently from the others, allowing for so many different playstyles. And each character is viable, except for Blade. Don't use Blade. And once again, I cannot believe the insane amount of enemy variety, with each new main story mission pitting you against new enemy types and new goals and objectives to complete. And one thing I didn't know I wanted but find hard to live without now is that each mission consists of 2 battles with a bit of story happening between each battle, making the experience feel more cinematic. You can see the situation escalate and evolve from battle to battle. This harkens back to the days of Final Fantasy Tactics when units would exchange dialogue mid-battle. And then of course we have to talk about the bosses. These are some of the most high-octane tense moments, oftentimes leaving you exhausted but wanting more. I understand that some of you may not be Marvel fans, or maybe you are experiencing superhero fatigue with the 50,000 movies recently. I get that, but do not let either of those issues stop you from playing Midnight Suns. I am not a superhero fan at all. I only knew a couple of the characters going into this game. I haven't seen any of the movies and I am already tired of them. Regardless, none of that hurt my enjoyment of this game. Whether you are a fan of SRPGs or not, you owe it to yourself to play Midnight Suns.